So good to see you guys. Looking forward to today's session. We're going to be talking all about how to accelerate your deal flow, your new client flow, your growth by putting some paid traffic behind your funnel and behind your strategy. So really looking forward to getting into this with you guys. All right. So when I think about growing and scaling your digital marketing agency, and some of you guys in that startup phase, some of you in that struggle phase, some of you in that scaling phase, to get to seven figures and multiple seven figures, we have to have a system. We have to have a process to make that a reality. Just type seven if you're committed to get to seven figures and beyond in your agency. Like that's a true aspiration for you. That's something you intend to accomplish. That's a goal that you're striving towards. Penny says seven. Jason, glad to have you here, says seven. Mike, seven. All right. So we're dedicated not just to try and build a freelance business or create a couple $1,000s a month of recurring. We really want to build a true seven-figure agency that's going to produce more money, more freedom, and a bigger impact. What we teach in seven-figure agency and what I've implemented that helped grow our agency to over $7 million per year and now have over 154 agencies that have gone to seven figures is this agency growth system. And this is the fundamentals of everything that we teach. And really, it's a couple of things we want to be doing daily, a couple of things we want to be doing monthly, and a couple of things we want to be doing quarterly. And when you do those things consistently, and there's a KPI we're shooting for, and that KPI is at least 15 strategy sessions per month. And you could call it a strategy session, you could call it a meeting, you could call it a sales call, you could call it a demo, but we're looking for 15 sales appointments every single month, right? And there's a lot of things we can do to make that a reality. From there, we have to make sure that we've got a nice site appointment funnel, like where they can show up, they can get pre-positioned to buy, they can like really come to that meeting excited about what you can bring to the table. And we have to have a great sales process where we ask the right questions, we open the loops in their mind, we show the gap between where they are and where they want to go, and we explain exactly how our program is going to help them get to that goal. And when you've got a clear niche and you've got a great appointment funnel process, the KPI we're shooting for is 30% or higher. Right? If we can close at 30% or higher with 15 strategy sessions, that means we're going to get 3 to 5 clients pretty much every single month. And if we're charging between $1,500 and $3,500 per month, just do the math, that puts you on pace to add an additional seven figures or get to seven figures in 12 to 24 months. Now, of course, we have to retain those clients, right? We have to have great onboarding. We have to have a great deliverable that actually generates tangible, measurable return on investment. And then we have to have the retention strategies in place. And the KPI we're shooting for there is 97% or higher. And so I always like to zoom out briefly. The goal is to get to seven figures, and we know we need to put a growth system in place. I like to zoom out and look at the big picture, the KPIs, the key things we have to put in place, the key activities we need to be doing on a consistent basis to make that a reality. And today, we're really going to be like focusing on the daily activity of traffic acceleration, right? Because sometimes, let me know if this is you, sometimes we set up a beautiful funnel. We put out great content. We've got a great appointment engine that people can schedule in. And we do a lot of activity, but we're nowhere near 15 strategy sessions a month. And it's like, man, I'm still not getting any momentum. Sometimes it feels like crickets. Type crickets in the comments if you feel like, man, I've set all my funnel up. I'm creating this content. I'm doing this, but I'm not getting appointments. I'm not getting deal flow. I'm definitely not getting the growth that I'm after. All right, so Penny is saying crickets. I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate. I know crickets isn't an easy word to type. Oftentimes, we just haven't put any gasoline into the engine, right? It's like if you've got great content and you've got a great funnel, but there's nobody in your niche seeing it, there's nobody being entered to the top of the funnel, then you're not going to get the results that you want at the end. And so that's what today's session is going to be all about. We're going to be talking about how do we effectively invest in paid traffic strategies to accelerate the deal flow, to accelerate the growth so that we can get that consistent momentum that we're after. And the challenge I hear, as again, dealing with lots and lots of agencies on this front, is you're just not getting the results that you need and want. You're doing the activity, but you're just not getting the outcomes that you're after. And so have you ever felt this way where it's like I'm spending money on ads? I've got a website. I'm even doing cold outreach, but I'm just not getting the deal flow. Just type me if that's you. Because hopefully there's a problem that you're looking to solve, and today's session is going to be the solution. right? So just type me if this is at this point your agency. Tanya is saying me. Guys, again, have your webcams on, engage with me in the chat. Let's not just make this a session where I'm talking, you're listening, but we're having a two-way dialogue. Okay, great. Penny says me, tons of cold outreach, nothing but tire kickers. Rob says me. Michael Leander says me. Excellent. Appreciate you guys engaging with me. And a lot of times it can feel like we're setting cash on fire, right? Whether it's cash in terms of our Facebook ads or Google ads or retargeting spend or buying lists or sending out a bunch of emails or setting up tools like High Level and other platforms that just don't go anywhere. And it feels like I could have burned that money and had as good of an outcome. And really what we want to do, where we want to position ourselves, is to get clients lined up. The right clients that we want to do business with lined up, looking at us as the expert, saying, okay, that's the man or that's the woman I want to work with. And so we want clients coming to us pre-positioned to buy. Just type pre-position in the chat here. That's what we want to get to, right? So we've got a full calendar and we're landing clients on a consistent basis. Jay says me as well. Sorry for the delay. Rob says pre-position. Fantastic. All right, so let's get into it. I really think if we're going to land clients with paid ads, there's a couple of things that we have to put in place. Number one is our targeting, right? And what's interesting is we can target our ideal customer. A lot of you guys don't even know who your target is. Like those of you that say you're a generalist agency, like how would you define that target? It's a small and medium-sized business, maybe in my local area. Very hard to put out anything that would be interesting and relevant to that industry versus, I'll just give an example. One of our new members, been with us for going on 6 months now, is Andy Felice. And he works with garage door companies. And he's grown after, he was telling me, almost 6 years as a generalist agency, spinning his wheels, stuck at $10,000, $20,000 a month. He's grown by 5 times over the last couple of months because he decided, all right, I'm going to focus on garage door companies. I'm going to put together a program specific for that industry. And I'm going to laser target. I'm going to become the best of the best in that space. And really, if you don't have a clear target, you can really do a lot of activity with no outcome. So what's interesting is when we know, all right, garage door business owners is my target, we can anchor to that audience, right? So we can run ads to catch their attention. We can put out content to get their attention. We can even reach out to them via cold outreach. But when it comes to targeting, we want to get our prospect data, right? So if we're going after garage door companies, we're going to join the industry association. We're going to purchase a list, ideally from a service like Coldlytics, and we're going to aggregate the names, the phone numbers, the mailing addresses, all of the contact details for the people within that space. And then we're able to load that up as a custom audience on Facebook, on Google, so that at least our initial foray, our original advertising, can be hitting the exact customers, the exact prospects we want to do business with. And then as we're putting out content, as we're reaching out to those folks and bringing them into our landing pages and bringing them into our content, we can retarget them, right? So it all starts with targeting. If we don't know who our audience is, we don't know how to reach them, we don't know how to get in front of them, nothing else matters. From there, it's our funnel, right? So what's the approach that somebody goes through in order to become a client? And so when it comes to paid ads, we want to offer a case study or a training of some sort. Then we want to have an application process where they enter some details about who they are, the problems they have, how much their advertising expense is, and then move them to appointment, right? So that's the funnel. When it comes to Facebook ads, I'll show you some visuals and some examples of how you want to set this up to reduce friction and get the best outcomes possible. And then ultimately, it's the actual ads, right? The ads we're going to run on Facebook, on Google. We want to make sure we set it up properly, like with the right targeting, with the right conversion settings. We want to make sure that we're using traffic and reach. This is one of the things that if you've got a small list, and by Facebook standard, if you loaded a list of 10,000 garage door repair companies, that's a very small list. And if you try and run a conversion campaign to that, it's going to be shown to them a couple times, and then you won't get any momentum from it. I want to have a reach campaign or a traffic campaign where they're going to see me again and again and again until they either schedule in or they just totally disengage with us altogether. And then on an ongoing basis, we have to be optimized, right? The thing with paid ads is we can't just set up an ad once and call it a day. Like we got to be rolling out new ads on a consistent basis. We've got to be looking at the click-through metrics. We've got to be looking at the results. changing the way that we approach it over time. And so this is the big picture model for landing clients with paid advertising. Any questions or thoughts on this? So Rob's asking, what about LinkedIn? You could do this on LinkedIn as well. I like the idea of having a targeted audience that we're trying to connect with on LinkedIn and then using a tool to connect with those people and start conversations. In terms of paid advertising, I haven't seen great results. It's a little bit higher cost, but there's definitely options and ways that we can leverage LinkedIn to get appointments. Let's see. Noel's asking if there's a workbook for this session. Yes, I'll be sharing that in just a second. So here's what we're going to do on today's training. Big picture, 5 key things. Number 1 is we're going to build a client attraction asset, right? If we don't have any assets and we're just trying to move people straight to appointment, that's going to be a tough go. Number 2 is we're going to set up your funnel and your booking system. We'll look at what you need to have in place to simplify that, but also make sure that it's bringing people to us pre-positioned to buy. Number 3, we're going to make sure we're clear on how to get that list so that we can get the targeting dialed in. Number 4 is how we set up the ads campaign for maximum results. And then number 5, how we're going to optimize the engine and optimize the outputs on an ongoing basis. Rob, or who was it here? Noel just asked, is there a workbook? Yes, I actually put together a nice little workbook PDF for this. If you want it, just try traffic accelerator into the chat or just type something like that, and we will make sure to send that over to you, whether you're watching this live with me right now, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube or somewhere else. Type traffic accelerator, and that will prompt us to send that over to you. All right, let's see. Call a couple of names. Rob's asked for it. Charlotte, Lloyd, excellent. Good stuff, everybody. Miraji, I apologize. I'm terrible with that. Alternatively, if you want to hit this QR code or go to go.sevenfigureagents.com/traffic, you can enter your contact details there and we will give you access to the workbook that goes along with today's session. So first thing we want to do is really set up our client attraction assets, which are like positioning ourselves as an expert within the industry, within the space. And there's really a handful of positioning assets that I would suggest you set up that can make you the expert within any vertical you happen to choose. As a matter of fact, I'd like to know in the chat, like, what is your target audience? Let me know in the chat here, what is your niche? What is the industry? Like, who is it that you're looking to sell to? Nonprofits, says Rob. Home improvement, says Charlotte. Let's go. Animal and pet rehab clinics. Gyms making over $2 million per year, says Jab. Tanya, animal and pet rehabilitation clinics. Love that. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to use that as the example. So if we want to become the expert in pet clinics, pet rehabilitation clinics, there's a couple assets you can put in place, right? And apply what I'm going to say here to whatever industry you happen to be in. Number 1 is having a keynote presentation. So when I say keynote presentation, I'm not talking about the keynote file. I'm saying create a presentation that you could confidently share either on Zoom or live at an industry event on what these pet rehabilitation centers would need to do to attract more patients. I guess you would call them patients in this case. And have that in the can, have it ready so that if you reached out to the association and said, hey, I've got this training on how they can generate more leads and sales and grow their patient flow by dialing in their online marketing, have that ready to rock and roll. So that's the first asset you want to have in place, because that forces you to flex your thought creativity on what would they need to put in place. So do they need a good website? Do they need to have SEO so they're coming up organically? Do they need to have a system to generate online reviews? Should they be doing some content and some befores and afters, some case studies of pets that came in with serious problems and some type of explainer videos on how they solved that problem and how that pet got back on track? Like, really engineer what they would need to do in the perfect world and have a presentation with bullets and slides and explanation that you can use. Because once you have that, you can turn it into a PDF. You can turn it into a web-based training. You can turn it into a mini course. You can convert that into a book if you wanted to in the future. So we start with the keynote presentation. From there, you want to create your guide. So the complete guide to digital marketing for pet rehabilitation clinics, right? You have a great graphic for it, and it's a simple PDF that's walking through those key things. These are assets that once you have it, you'll be able to deploy, you'll be able to use in a lot of different ways to get prospects to come to you pre-positioned to buy. You want to have a niche website, and not your main agency, but literally petrehabilitationmarketers.com as an example. And that website says, hey, we specialize in helping pet rehabilitation clinics attract more patients, right? And talk about the problems they're facing with their marketing. Talk about like the key strategies that you would recommend when you've got the Pet Pulse marketing system. You love it. Yes, perfect. Case studies and testimonials, right? One of the best things you can do to position yourself as an expert within your industry, in addition to creating great content, is to actually prove your results and think about the pet clinics that you've worked with and connect with them and say, hey, look, let's jump on a quick Zoom and you tell me like where you were at in your business, how many new pets you were getting on a monthly basis, what you were struggling with, and then talk about the after. Hey, so let's talk a little bit about what we put in place for you with the website, with the SEO, with the marketing automation, and how has that changed? How many new patients are you getting now? Why did you choose us? What would you say to somebody else that's thinking about hiring our services? And that content is extremely powerful, especially when paired with thought leadership. Then you've got the proof content coupled with it. This will make you an expert within your space. Video-based training and webinars, which would just be to take this keynote presentation and record yourself using Zoom or using ScreenFlow or Descript or whatever platform you like. Use that and create the video content that somebody could watch on demand. Somebody could watch and you get information, get insights about how you can help. Number 4 is the book on internet marketing for that industry. So I've got our book. Where is it? Right here. How to triple your sales by getting your internet marketing for plumbing and HVAC contractors. This book is one of the key assets that we use in so many different ways, because there's like really only 2 things that people think about when they think about who's the expert, who's the authority in this particular industry. It's the person on the front of the stage, right, doing keynote presentations, putting on webinars and content, and it's the author, right? By default, if you're the author of the book on that topic for that industry, you're an authority, right? And the pet marketing practice guide to growing your patient flow, something along those lines. Once you've published the book, now you can send it out to your Dream 100 list. You can run ads, right? Offering to send it out for free. You can go to like trade shows and events and hand it out. But it's an asset. Even if you don't use it, it's an asset to claim, hey, I'm the author of digital marketing on this particular industry. And I think what's interesting when it comes to the book topic is I think most of us like the idea. Yeah, I'd like to have a book. That sounds great. But it feels like a heavy ask. It feels like, that's going to take a lot of work. I've got to come up with the content. I'm going to have it proofread. Here's the reality. 99% of people will get a book like this. They'll kind of scan it a little bit, but they'll never read it. We spend all this time vexing over creating perfect content, knowing that probably no one's ever going to read it. So you might as well come up with a version of your book, put a nice, pretty cover on it, and have your book published. And so I really like to explain it in this way. You can write the book, right? Which is, okay, I'm going to write the best book and it's going to be like my life's work and my life's philosophy. Or you can write a book. And I would encourage you to think of this as a book, right? Let's get a book done. That way we've got the asset. Type book if you can take some pressure off yourself and say, hey, I'm going to come up with a really cool title. I'm going to come up with a really cool cover, and it's going to be a book, right? A bunch of you guys writing a book. I love that. Hopefully that takes some pressure off. One of the things we provide for our 7-figure agency members is my actual book template, right? Which is, I've written this book, I've published it. Concepts are universal. They can be applied to pet clinics as well as to like landscape companies and everything in between. And with AI these days, it's beautiful because you can take that concept, you can say, hey, AI, here's a transcript for a book on digital marketing. I need to modify it so it matches pet rehabilitation clinics. Help me write that content, right? And before you know it, you can have a book done in a couple of weeks. So just a cool thing, whether if you remember, that's something we'll basically hand you on a silver platter that you can get done. But if not, it's not that hard either. Take your keynote presentation, have it transcribed, feed it to ChatGPT or to Claude, and give it some context about you're writing a book for this particular industry, and you're going to have a pretty good book. So just type AI if you're okay with leveraging a little bit of AI to help you get this done, knowing at the end of the day, your prospects aren't probably going to read it, but they'll be impressed that you have it, right? And they won't throw it away if they have it on their desk somewhere. All right, a bunch of you guys saying AI, fantastic. Okay, cool. The next thing is a podcast. Very simple thing to do, but very high authority, right? If you've got a book and you're doing webinars and you've got a podcast that sits on Spotify, it sits on iTunes, it sits on YouTube, that positions you as an expert. And also, this doesn't have to be that hard. Like if you've got your keynote presentation and you take the audio for that, you've got a great first episode. The other thing that I really love in terms of podcast content is just interview people within your space. And so I don't think there's probably very many podcasts out there where you can hear from very successful pet rehabilitation clinics, right? That content probably doesn't exist. And so if you were to go out and say, hey, I'm going to go just reach out to some of the most successful pet rehabilitation clinics. I'm going to ask them if they'll be on my podcast. And I'm going to ask them a couple questions about how many patients they have per month and how they market themselves and what they do to get online reviews and, how they're approaching the way that they upsell their rehabilitation clinic clients. You'd have amazing content that stands out in the marketplace. And you only need to do one episode per month. You could do it on Zoom. You could do it on Descript. You could do it on Riverside. Just type podcast if you feel like that's something you could do once a month. It will definitely position you as an expert. The other cool thing with podcasting is if I cold called pet rehabilitation clinics and said, hey, I'd love to get a couple minutes of your time to talk about our marketing services and how we can help you, you're going to get screened out immediately, right? The lady at the front desk is going to be like, this is a sales call. You're done. However, if I reach out to that same practice and I say, hey, I've got this podcast, we're featuring successful pet rehabilitation clinics. I'd love to have the doctor on, the veterinarian on. Would they be open to that? Can you guys see how that's much lower resistance? And I'm not saying to bait and switch. I'm not saying to get them on your podcast and try and pitch them your service. However, you're going to get a lot more conversations and a lot more opportunities coming with that approach than just trying to go straight for a sales. Just type yes if that makes sense and if that resonates. Not only are you creating great content, but you're able to get your foot in the door with your ideal prospects that you would have never been able to get your foot in the door with otherwise. Okay, cool. So that resonates. Retargeting, right? Make sure that anybody that gets into your funnel, gets into your process, you're starting to run banner ads. This creates omnipresence. Omnipresence is you're showing up everywhere. Now, you can't afford to show up everywhere for everyone, but we can probably show up in front of all of the pet rehabilitation clinics that we want to do business with, right? So retarget, that way they're seeing us everywhere. Have a printed newsletter. I think a lot of people sleep on this. We do a lot of digital, email marketing, podcast, videos, but nobody's sending direct mail the way we have in the past. And so you take your podcast, you take your content, you have it transcribed, you put it into a printed newsletter that you mail out to your dream prospects once a month or once a quarter, and you show up physically in their mailbox. That gets a different level of authority. That gets a different level of attention. It will make you stand out in the marketplace. And so lots of things, right? These are 9 key assets you can put in place. If there was one that resonates with you that you're like, you know what, I could definitely do that, I want you to put that into the chat. What's the one positioning asset? You should do it all eventually, but what would be the next one, the easiest one that you're like, yes, I think I could do that. I think it would have a big impact. I want to hear from all of you guys in the chat. Drop something that you can do from a positioning perspective. Desiree says, marketing guide, love it. Jay says, printed newsletter. Yes, that will absolutely make you stand out. Penny says, webinar training, fantastic. Jab says, podcast, fantastic. Keynote says, Rob. Charlotte says, podcast. Chris says, the book. Yes, absolutely. Fantastic. All right, good. At least I got your wheels turning here. If you put even 1 or 2 of these marketing assets in place, it's going to change your positioning in the marketplace. And what's wonderful is when you start to get on sales calls with prospects, and instead of them looking at you as a salesperson, like somebody that's just there to give them the hard sale, and they start to look at you as, oh, wow, you're the expert. I read your book, or I listened to one of your podcast episodes, or I sat on one of your webinars and I liked what I learned, or I listened to that interview you did with that other pet rehabilitation center. When they show up on your sales calls with that position, the entire dynamic changes, right? It's a much different conversation. Your close ratio is much higher. They're much more willing to pay a premium rate, and business is a lot more fun. What's also cool when you've got this level of authority, this level of positioning, when you start to go to industry events and conferences, instead of people like averting their eyes when they see you, like even in micro niches, they'll start to come up and ask to take pictures with you. And you start to become the celebrity expert within your space. Type celebrity if you'd like to have that level of celebrity positioning in your niche and have people wanting to come up and take pictures with you or wanting to have you sign their book. I can name a number of our members that would have never thought this was possible. People like Brady Sticker from Church Candy, who works with churches, just got really consistent with the content, published his book, and this is a reality for him. When he goes to a church conference, they're like, oh my goodness, that's Brady Sticker, and they're asking to take pictures. Lucas Eggerbrotten, who works with like excavation companies, which you'd think, is that even a niche? Yeah, it is. When he goes to industry conferences, people are begging to get a photo with him. And so this is possible. You got to do the work, right? But that expert positioning makes your life easier, right? It gets clients to come to you pre-positioned to buy. Not only, it's not just like an ego thing. People will pay a premium to deal with the celebrity expert within their industry. All right, so we've talked about the key assets that you want to put in place that will position you as an expert within your industry. Next thing we want to do is we want to set up our booking funnel, right? Make it easy so that someone can schedule in, get warmed up, and actually show up to the meeting pre-positioned to buy. And I've done a full deep dive training on this for the community here at the 7 Digital Marketing Agency Success Community. And so feel free to go ham with that and learn all the details. I'm going to give the Cliff Notes version. Ultimately, we want to offer something of value, right? Which could be the book, right? Once you've got the book, that's a great asset, right? They'll definitely opt in for that. You could have a keyword list. You could have a cheat sheet. You could have a guide. Start by giving them something of value, right? So you lead with giving them something of value that they can opt in for. And then you want to have an appointment funnel where they can schedule in, right? Where they can pick a date and a time and also get warmed up. And so after they pick their date and the time, we want to take them to a process where they hear about what's going to happen on the meeting and how you're going to show up and how you're going to be prepared, and get them to watch at least 1 or 2 case studies or testimonials before the meeting. And we're going to use some marketing automation so that it reminds them and it warms them up and it improves the probability that they show up for that appointment. Simply speaking, right, we're going to take them to the bottom of the funnel. Hey, yourwebsite.com/schedule, right? And it's not just going to be a calendar page. Ideally, we're going to have a video that talks about the value of the meeting, why they want to meet with you, the work you're going to do. Like we're going to run a keyword list of the most commonly searched pet clinic keywords that you can use. But then we're also going to run an analysis to see where you're coming up on Google, on ChatGPT, on these various engines to see where you're coming up and where you're not. And then we're going to evaluate your website and how well it converts and it doesn't convert. And you'll walk away with a very clear plan on how you can generate more leads, more sales, and more revenue growth and new patients on a consistent basis. So if that sounds good, enter details here on the side to schedule, right? You really want to sell them in the copy and on the conversation about the value they're going to get on that meeting. And one of the things you can do, instead of calling it a sales call or instead of calling it a strategy session, call it something valuable. Call it a lead flow acceleration or a practice acceleration blueprint meeting. Give it a sexy title so they're like, yeah, absolutely, I want to do that. Let them pick a date and a time. Remove the friction so they can say, okay, Tuesday at 3, I'm not emailing back and forth. I'm not checking your availability. I've got that calendar right there on the site. And then warm them up, right? We want to make sure that once they've scheduled, we're not just dropping them on a confirmation page. We've got a video that says, hey, thanks so much for scheduling. It's going to be amazing. We're going to do this due diligence in advance. If you could, please make sure you block this on the calendar. If you have any questions, let us know. And one other thing I'd like you to do is watch a couple of the examples and case studies, how we've helped other pet clinics, just so you can be mentally framed for what's possible after we meet. So excited to see you there. add it to your calendar now. That's what you want to do to warm the prospects up. You can use any booking system you want, Calendly, JotForms, whatever. We use High Level. What we give to all of our seven-figure agency members is the ultimate agency funnel. So we actually have these pages, the script for these pages, the copy for these pages, the design elements that you can just click and import into your High Level and modify for your niche. Helps to significantly shortcut the process. But you can use whatever you want, and then obviously test the process and make sure that it works. Let me know when it comes to appointment scheduling, like what are you going to use? What do you use today? What are you going to use in the future? It's going to be High Level. Is it going to be Calendly? Is it going to be something else? Penny is GHL. Desiree is Calendly. GHL. Nice. You give the snapshot. Absolutely. Rob, Google. Okay, great. Just get clear in your mind. Make like how you're going to make this happen. And again, for those of you that are interested at the end, we'll have an option. We'll talk a little bit about the seven-figure agency coaching. And if you want some help and you want to shortcut all this stuff, we can hand it to you on a silver platter. All right. Number 3. Now we're going to get into targeting and that. How do we find that audience? How do we get their attention so that we can advertise to them? A couple ways to get the list. And again, I'm just going to stick with the pet clinic example because I think that is helpful for everyone that's on here live because this is coming right off the fly. First and foremost, you can buy a list, which would be to go to sicco.com or to Coldlytics and say, I'm looking for pet clinic owners that have been in business for at least 2 years, that are doing at least $500,000 per year. And I want you to go find the owners of those businesses for me and provide it back into an Excel file. That way I can import it to High Level. I can upload it to Facebook. I can make it a custom audience. And this is the easiest, most practical, quickest option. I really like Coldlytics. Coldlytics now has a kind of an open source platform. It's not super expensive. But what usually happens if you use a tool like D7 Lead Finder or some of these other scraping tools, usually what they'll do is they'll scrape the internet. They'll scrape Google and Yelp and those other sites, and they'll give you the names of the companies in those categories, but you don't have the owner's name, so you can't customize the communication. You don't have their direct email address, so even when you do email, it's like info at or one of those situations. When you use a service like Coldlytics, they put a human researcher on the back end. And so they're looking up, all right, so these are the 700 companies that are in that profile, those pet clinic owners. And then it will figure out who are the owners of those companies. You get the actual owners' names. And then what is the direct email address for those people and verify that it's actually a non-bounce email. And if they can, they'll find a LinkedIn profile, a Facebook personal profile. They'll find all the contact data so that you can actually have good contact records to reach out to. And so this is a great place to start. It's to buy the list through a service like Coldlytics. Secondarily, you can borrow a list. And this is the highest leverage, but probably hardest play. Find someone that's already got relationships with all of those pet clinics, pet rehabilitation clinics. So there's probably bookkeeping services. There's probably coaches. There's probably a dispatch or CRM system that's commonly used in the industry. If you can reach out to those organizations and say, hey, look, we're selling to the same audience. If you're willing to introduce me and or give me your list so I can send them a copy of my book or put on some education for your community, we could do a joint venture of some sort, like where I'll share the revenue. This isn't an entry-level play, so I wouldn't even recommend it. But as you grow, as you scale, and you're already a known entity, those types of opportunities are a great way to get in front of your ideal audience. Number 3 is to build a list, right? This is where we're running our own ads and we're getting people to opt in. There's a long play here, but this isn't really where we want to start. We could scrape the list. I do not recommend using D7 Lead Finder and those other scraping tools, but that's an option. And then finally, the association. And this is my favorite play in combination with buying the list, because there is definitely a pet rehabilitation or a veterinary association that you could join. And when you join as either an affiliate partner or whatever they call it in that particular industry, you're going to get access to the members, usually to their website addresses, to their mailing addresses. Probably won't get their email addresses, but you'll get all their contact details. And you'll also be able to draft on affinity, right? So that when you do reach out to them, it's not like you're reaching out blind. You're saying, hey, you know what? We're part of the National Veterinary Association, and we just wanted to introduce ourselves. Or, hey, we're doing this training on how to do XYZ thing, like how to get your veterinary practice booked solid over the next 12 months, and we wanted to invite you. right? So that's the benefit of the association play. I think in any industry, and you might think, oh, this doesn't apply to me. In any industry, when you join, you're going to get the list. You probably then give that to a service like Coldlytics and say, I've got all these owners, but I don't know their email addresses. Help me out. And they put their research team to go append the information that you need. Alex says, what if there's an associate or an agency in that association? There usually is. In today's market, like for instance, in our world, we work with plumbing and HVAC companies. There's 6 major associations. There's a National Plumbing Contractor Association called PHCC, and there's a bunch of subgroups and sub-associations. There's dozens of agencies in all of those. That doesn't prevent me from joining the group. That doesn't prevent me from introducing myself to that group. That doesn't prevent me from trying to find opportunities. I think if you feel like you're going to find an industry that doesn't have any competition right now, you're chasing a fool's errand, right? There's going to be competition. There's going to be other agencies in any association you can imagine. So when you think about this, getting a list, I'd like to know what's going to be your approach. What if you had to choose one? What would it be? Let me know in the chat. Are you going to buy the list? Are you going to join the association? Are you going to look for joint ventures? Borrow the list? Penny's going to buy the list. Buy it. Rob's going to join the association play. Awesome. You'd probably do both, right? Join the association and buy that list. So from there, I would recommend using Coldlytics. Lead-In Force is another great platform specific for your Facebook advertising. How many of you guys have Facebook groups that are common within your niche? Like in my niche, there's tons of big groups with even thousands and tens of thousands of plumbing and HVAC business owners in them. Oftentimes, they won't let me join the group because they're like, oh, you're a marketer and you're just going to come in and sell to the group. However, I'd still like to target that audience. One of the cool things with Lead-In Force is you can put in the URL of the group, and it's got some technology that gives you a custom audience that you can then target on Facebook. Works really well in a lot of different industries. So that's a ninja hack that you can tap into. It's not free. There's some costs associated with it. Works well. And then attend the industry events. All right, we talked about the list. Number 4 is we want to set up the ads for maximum effect, right? I'm going to recommend Facebook ads is the easiest to set up. And then we've got Google ads, also very good, but different, right? Because we're looking for directional intent where they're typing in internet marketing for my veterinary practice, SEO for veterinary services. There's people actually typing those terms. So we should be coming up for that. I'm going to walk you through the hierarchy I suggest for these types of paid advertising. Organic, I think, should be still foundational, even in our own agencies. If we don't have a decent website with good content that's clearly speaking to our targeted audience, and we haven't thought about what are the main keywords somebody would type in when they're looking for digital marketing for their veterinary practice or for their pet rehabilitation clinic, then we're missing out, right? So organically, we want to make sure we're not paying for those clicks, that we've got a good organic opportunity that we're tapping into. Up from there is Google Ads, right? And there's not as much volume for this in most verticals. Believe it or not, we can spend almost $10,000 a month internet marketing for plumbing, which blows my mind that there's even that much search volume out there or that there's that much competition bidding on these terms. But I definitely want to make sure if someone goes to Google and types in my industry, plumbing, plus SEO, digital marketing, lead generation, etc., that's somebody in one of my niche organizations looking for exactly what I do, right? Obviously, we want to bid on that. So just type Google Ads here if that makes sense. There might not be a ton of search volume. There might only be $1,000 or $2,000 worth of spend opportunity, but we want to tap into that spend opportunity where it exists. From there, I always recommend if you're going to do organic, you're going to do Google Ads, make sure that you've got retargeting enabled, right? Because that way anybody that gets to our website is not going to get pixeled and they're going to start to see our banner ads through the Google Display Network. They're going to see our banner ads on Facebook, and we're not wasting the impression. We're actually tapping into the impression and turning it into an audience that we can develop know and trust with. And then we've got marketing automation in place, right? If you're running ads for somebody looking for digital marketing and you don't have automation for speed to lead, like where when the web form submission comes in or the booking request comes in and they're getting followed up with instantaneously, that's going to be a problem. So always as you start to layer these advertising strategies in place, we got retargeting and automation in place. Up from there is Facebook ads. which is just the number one platform. When I say Facebook and Instagram predominantly, we can target that industry and we can really saturate value-added advertising. The lowest hanging fruit I'll talk about here in a minute is just offering them an appointment. But once we've got good lead magnets, then we're offering value. Hey, get a free copy of my book, get my cheat sheet, get my guide, and then nurturing them through to appointments. Jab says, what's the recommended budget for a startup agency? Again, if you're literally in startup and you don't have any cash, then you're going to have to do all organic, right? Which is we're picking up the phone, we're sending DMs, we're going to industry meetups, and we're hustling, right? Today's session is around the paid acceleration formula, which is where we've got some money to invest in advertising. That's where these paid advertising plays come in place. And that's usually the accelerant to get to 7 figures, multiple 7 figures. I think on any of these channels, so let's just say Google Ads, you're probably going to need at least $1,000 to $2,000 a month in an ad spend to have any level of impact or lead flow. Same thing with Facebook ads, right? If we're going to do Facebook ads, assuming you're managing yourself and you know what you're doing, you want to have at least a $1,500 ad spend. If you don't have that much to invest, it's probably not going to be enough to net any type of result. Now, remember, the average client we're looking to sell should be paying us $1,500 to $3,000 per month. And if they're going to stay with us for 10 months or more, then their lifetime customer value is going to be like $15,000 to $30,000 minimum. And ideally, they're going to stay with us for years and years. You should be able to invest $1,500 to $2,500 to acquire a client. So just know, if we're investing $1,500 in Facebook ads, we might be willing to do 2 or 3 months worth of advertising to get 1 or 2 clients, right? And as you grow, as you scale, you can spend that money confidently because the revenue is there. Jab, hopefully that answers the question. $1,500 a month, probably minimum, and then you stack it from there. And then at the very top of the hierarchy is more branding advertising, which is going to be Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I'm big on YouTube. I'm a big fan of YouTube. We put out YouTube content. We run ads on YouTube. Your most concrete paid advertising strategy to fill the funnel to get your 15 or so strategy sessions per month is down here, like Google ads, Facebook ads, and retargeting. Jab says definitely makes sense. Okay, great. Again, I did provide you guys with a workbook for this. If you haven't grabbed it, it's sevenfigureagency.com/traffic. I don't know, all my team here, Esteban or Justin Littles, if you can drop the link in again, you do have to put the go.sevenfigureagency.com/traffic. All right. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I covered this part because somehow or another my slides got turned around. Here's when it comes to running your Facebook ads. This is what we're finding works best. And again, this is constantly changing. Have your targeted audience, and that's who you're going to run your ads to. You're going to run a reach campaign, not a conversion campaign out of the gate, because otherwise your 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 list is going to get hit and the ads will basically go by the wayside. So we want to open up where they can see us again and again and again. If you can record a video-based ad that's like a VSL that's talking about the problems, talking about the opportunity, sharing some examples, and then offering the next step, which is to schedule an appointment, that's working really well. Call out the audience, have a nice professionally produced video, learn more. But then when they click learn more, we're not taking them into a landing page because that's going to create additional friction. What we find works best is using the instant forms built right into Facebook or lead forms or whatever you call it. So when they click it, it opens up the Facebook form that they have to fill in a survey where they're entering a little bit like, do you actually run a plumbing or HVAC business? How much are you spending in advertising? And if they answer those questions and they enter their cell phone number, then the confirmation is going to take them to the calendar page where they can book a time. The key component, though, is when they enter this form, you want it synced up with your high level. And there's an easy automation for this where 2 things happen. Number 1, it opens up an instant messenger conversation. This is where most of your conversion is going to happen because when you take them from Facebook to a text message or to a phone call or to email communication, very little of that gets through. But if they started the conversation on Facebook and you started a 2-way Facebook Messenger conversation, that's where you're going to get most of their attention. Now, the way it's set up, they fill in their details. It's going to take them straight to the calendar where they can schedule in. We're also going to trigger a text message that says, hey, thanks for reaching out. Saw you requested a time through our Facebook ad. Did you want to schedule a time to chat? Start a conversation there, and then use the automation that once they write back something, it says, great, now go ahead and pick a time that works for you and give them the link to schedule in. And then you make sure you drop those leads onto a pipeline so that in addition to the automation, in addition to the Facebook Messenger, you know that there's either you or a human being that needs to pick up the phone, right? That needs to track that person down and say, hey, you just requested information, just wanted to check in. Did you want to schedule a time? Did you have any questions? Speed the lead is the name of the game with this. And when you do it this way, you can get consistent leads. You can get leads like requested appointments for between $90 and $150 per lead. And your average cost to acquire is probably going to wind up netting in around that $1,500 because not everyone's qualified. A lot of the people just don't answer at all, but you can optimize for this. And you can continue to increase the spend and get great results over time. Type helpful if it's helpful to see the visual of this. Again, for our members, we have a step-by-step instructional that shows you like, here's how we set up the targeting. Here's how we set up the instant form. Here's the workflow that you turn on and that you sync up so that it drops on the pipeline, sends the automation, and walks you through the entire process. We also have the VSL script, so you can hear how I do it, and you can use a teleprompter and record yourself doing it and get this iterated and get it launched. The other ad that actually works really well outside of your VSL style ad is either an image, like just a basic image of a client with some type of headline, generated 327 leads last month or something along those lines, or a testimonial. So if you're doing interviews with your clients for the podcast or for your case studies, you can take the clip where they talk about why they chose you, how great the results are, and you literally make that the ad. And so we've got some great examples of that whenever you're ready for it in the member portal. And then on the Google Ads side, right? This part is obvious. Right? When they search, we want to make sure we've got our ads running. And one of the cool things we've developed is a shell campaign where you can type in like your industry and then automatically merge in what are the right keywords, what are the right text ad combinations so that you can really simplify launching your Google Ads campaign. And then of course, retargeting, regardless of where they get into your funnel, we want to make sure they're seeing us in banner ads across the web, moving them to the next step in the funnel, whether that's to schedule an appointment, which would be easiest, or to opt in for our lead magnet if we happen to have that. So again, I could talk for hours about this. This is a topic I'm passionate about. We're almost to time. Would love to answer any questions that you have, but just on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being like, this was a waste of your time, 10 being like, I feel like I got some concrete ideas on how to position myself, how to set up my funnel, how to set up my targeting, how to set up my advertising to attract clients for my digital marketing agency. 1 if it was terrible, 10 if it was good. Tanya gave me a 10. Jab says 15. Ray, okay, good. You guys are being too nice to me today. I appreciate it. I'm seeing lots of 10s in the chat. Thank you guys for your feedback. If you want some additional help for this, I'd love to be able to give you the exact step-by-step, but there's only so much we can give on these free workshops. If you want additional help, we do have complete swipe and deploy on this entire process, right? From how to set it up, how to set up the campaigns, and the actual funnels that you can put in place. If you want some additional help, there's really 2 ways you can get some additional help. Option 1, if you're less than 10K in monthly recurring revenue, we've got a training program called the Agency Growth Launchpad Coaching, which is all around like how to set up and get you to 10K as quickly as possible. If you want to learn more about Launchpad, Henry on our team is going to set up a little breakout room here and walk you through it, answer any questions that you have, ideally get you set up so that you can get started on this later today or early tomorrow morning. If you're over 10K and you're like, you know what, I'd like to learn about the coaching and mentorship where you've got support from me and our specialty coaches. And really the goal at that level is to get you to 7 figures and multiple 7 figures as quickly as possible. Esteban on our team is going to be in this room and he'll walk you through what that is, how it works, what's included, how much it costs, and all of those details. Guys, thanks for your feedback. Thanks for being on here today. I'm going to give the floor to Esteban now.